Today, I'll be reacting to the day Larry Bird showed Michael Jordan who is the boss. So let's go right into the video.
You're right there. You got to keep him under control.
Time out with 3 seconds.
Let's get it. Okay, Larry.
Being on the throne is not just about being the king, it's about being the rival to beat. And you also got to be willing to prove your superiority to any opponent who aspires to kingship. And that was exactly the situation for Larry Bird in 1986.
I'd much rather guard Michael Jordan than Larry Bird because you have to play the game as a thinker when you're playing him.
The Celtics forward was not only coming off one of the most successful individual seasons in league history, winning his third consecutive regular season MVP and hoisting the Larry O'Brien while earning his second finals MVP.
I'm really proud to receive this award for the third time.
Bird was changing the game. The whole conception of the small forward was different after his time in the NBA. But just when he looked like he was the undisputed king, a new lion was coming to the pride. A young Michael Jordan came into the league making a difference right from the start. And from the very first moment, he made it clear to Larry that he wasn't afraid of him at all. The Celtics were still the better team, but MJ put on one of the greatest performances in playoff history against Boston in 1986, making a statement about who was the better player on the hardwood. And from then on, the rivalry burned hotter than ever. See, Larry Bird had a mission.
Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, they always had good matchups against one another, but of course, Larry Bird won that battle because even though Michael Jordan was scoring 30, 40 points every game he played the Celtics always won because this was during Larry Bird prime, which Boston was going to the finals winning championships. So, of course, they were the better team. That's why Michael Jordan just kept losing to them, because the Bulls just wasn't that good yet. The 86 Celtics team, though, that is one of the greatest teams in NBA history, the 86 Celtics. That was a squad.
Against Boston in 1986, making a statement about who was the better player on the hardwood. And from then on, the rivalry burned hotter than ever. See, Larry Bird had a mission. For his entire career, he had been the undisputed best player in the NBA. But now, a 23-year-old kid who was averaging 37 points per game was challenging him for the reign of the king of world basketball. The Bird had already proved it all. His legacy was unmatched, but his honor was in jeopardy. And that was something that he wouldn't allow. The reason was simple. Bird was bidding to become the GOAT of basketball. The forward had been breaking every barrier in existence since arriving to the NBA. In 1979, Bird signed a contract with the Celtics to become the highest paid rookie in league history at $650,000 per year. But
the difference in contracts in the NBA from back in the day to now is insane. I think rookies now that get drafted like top 3 or top 5, they're making around 10 to 12 million a year. It's insane. Now, don't get me wrong, $650,000 per year, that's excellent money. That's excellent money. You're in the top 1% in the United States. That's great money. But I'm talking about in terms of the NBA back then compared to now, that ain't nothing.
Contract with the Celtics to become the highest paid rookie in league history at $650,000 per year. But as soon as he arrived in the NBA, Larry wreaked havoc. He finished 4th in the MVP race during his rookie year. During the next 3 seasons, not only did he win the NBA ring for the first time in 1981, but he also finished 2nd in the MVP race 3 times. And his averages during this stint? 22.6 points, 10.9 rebounds, and 5.7 assists per game. But something happened.
That's elite. Those stats are elite right there. That's elite.
1981, but he also finished 2nd in the MVP race 3 times. And his averages during this stint? 22.6 points, 10.9 rebounds, and 5.7 assists per game. But something happened during the summer of 1983. Bird went from being the second best player in the league to a completely legendary player, and absolutely superior to his eternal rival Magic Johnson. Thus began his incredible 3-year stint in which he became one of the greatest players of all time. From 1983 to 1986, Bird achieved 3 NBA MVPs. After winning the 1984 championship and being for the first time in his career MVP of the finals, Bird ascended in the NBA Olympus and wrote his name in the history books forever. During those 3 seasons, Larry averaged 26.2 points, 10.1 rebounds, and 6.7 assists per game, while continuing to be an elite defender, by the way. This was his status just prior to the start of the 1986 playoffs, a versatile forward who was capable of doing everything on the court. There had never been a big man who had the skills of a perimeter player in traditional basketball until he came along, and not just because of his iconic three-shot becoming one of the
Oh yeah, Larry Bird was elite. One of the greatest all-around players ever. He can do everything on the basketball court.
There had never been a big man who had the skills of a perimeter player in traditional basketball until he came along, and not just because of his iconic three-shot becoming one of the first small forwards that played the power forward position to be able to stretch the floor. His incredible passing ability allowed him to become a true leader for those Celtics, both on offense and defense. But in order to win his third ring in 1986, he first had to get past a team with a major stud that was starting to make some noise, and just less than a full year later. It was March 27, 1987. The Celtics, with a record of 51 wins and 19 losses, were coming off a back-to-back to face a Bulls team with a record of 35 wins and 35 losses. That, by the way, was also coming off a game the night before. Bird was having a pretty good season with averages of 28 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 8 assists per game that allowed him to finish third in the MVP race.
He said that's so normal. He had a pretty good season. That's an excellent season. He came in third in MVP? That's an excellent season. He said that's so normal. That's hilarious.
4. Bird was having a pretty good season with averages of 28 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 8 assists per game that allowed him to finish third in the MVP race. While Jordan, who would end up finishing second, was averaging an absurd 37 points per game.
Crazy.
Came out with an unusual
Michael Jordan is ridiculous. 37 points a game? Michael Jordan is out of this world.
finished third in the MVP race, while Jordan, who would end up finishing second, was averaging an absurd 37 points per game. The Celtics came out with an unusual starting five due to the absence of Dennis Johnson, who was replaced by Jerry Sitching. And playing away from home, they knew it would be a tough game. But right from the first plays of the game, Bird showed what kind of night he was going to have. His off-ball movement was elite, basically, because of his enormous basketball IQ, his fakes. I mean, this was one of the most dangerous men in basketball without the ball in his hands. That, coupled with the gravity he generated from his mid-range and long-range shooting, was lethal. Plus, he was a typical player who was blessed by the divine touch, okay? But once again, his arsenal from the low post was unpredictable. It's easy to find samples of his off-ball ability and gravity, as it was often his easiest way to score. But
that's what I've been saying about Larry Bird. He have no weaknesses on the offensive end. He can shoot, he can pass, he can rebound, he can score in the post. He's great moving without the ball. He had everything. He was great with his offhand. He had everything on the offensive end. He absolutely had no weaknesses.
Of his off-ball ability and gravity, as it was often his easiest way to score. But on this day, his mid-range shot was touched by a magic wand. He just couldn't miss, and he was able to abuse it again and again and again. Meanwhile, Jordan began to realize the enormous attention he was getting from the Celtics defense, which every time he attempted a drive sent multiple bodies to stop him. But far from getting advantages only without the ball in his hands, Larry was also able to score in ISOs from the low post, a move that decades later, Mavs legend Dirk Nowitzki patented and made his own. So the Bulls realized they had no choice but to do what the Celtics did with Jordan, a virtually continuous 2-on-1 when he had the ball in his hands. So Bird basically said, you know what, I'm going to hurt them in transition. Thus came the end of the first quarter, in which somehow the Bulls managed to stay close on the scoreboard, trailing by only 1 point, 36-35. Bird had a spectacular first quarter in scoring, 20 points, nothing more.
Oh man, he did all of that in the first quarter? 20 points in the first quarter? That is insane. Oh my gosh. That man had 20 of their 36 points. That is crazy. That is crazy.
Managed to stay close on the scoreboard, trailing by only 1 point, 36-35. Bird had a spectacular first quarter in scoring, 20 points, nothing more, nothing less. So he began to take advantage of that extra attention to test his versatility. He was able to transform garbage into gold. Case in point, this loose ball, which he turns into a great assist. And if there's one thing you don't want, it's for the guy who's destroying you from mid-range to start showing signs of his playmaking ability. Bird was unleashed, and players like Kevin McHale appreciated it. Even when they didn't count, Larry's passes were simply spectacular. No, he really didn't even need to score to be the most impactful player in the game. In some cases, MJ had to defend the Celtics star too, and the size difference played a key role in these situations. But knowing that the half-court offense was very difficult with two defenders on top of him, Bird continued to make use of scoring in transition. And what was more shocking, a player of his size dropping threes like it's nothing. But incredibly,
His jump shot is so pure. Like, it makes no sense how good his jump shot is.
more shocking, a player of his size dropping threes.
That makes no sense.
But incredibly, despite Bird's 33 points in the first half, the Bulls managed to go into halftime trailing by only 3 points. Thanks in part to the 16 points MJ had scored during the first 2 quarters, of course. When the third quarter began, Larry kinda relaxed offensively. He decided to use his gravity to try to find better options for his teammates, as he knew he would need one more offensive threat to take the game easily. And stepping up on defense, the Celtics got stops on Jordan that allowed them to get easy baskets on the other end of the court. But Bird continued his playmaker role for most of the rest of the game, as he led his team on defense with actions like this one. He was certainly a player who had no problem getting his hands dirty either. But when Larry attempted a shot during the second half, it was to score. And he kept sending occasional reminders to the Bulls defense. Reminders that one player was not going to be enough to guard him. In front of a United Center packed with more than 18,000 fans, the forward was having a legendary game. The Celtics allowed just 22 points in the third quarter, by the way, and managed to head into the final quarter with a 9-point lead. And after resting for a couple of minutes, Larry continued to do whatever his team needed to do to get the win. These Celtics were good. I mean, like, really good. Bird was that piece of the puzzle that served as a wild card, too. That player you could put in any role.
In Larry Bird's prime, them Celtics teams, they had so much chemistry with one another. They had so much chemistry. The offense was easy going too. You could tell they was taking good shots.
To do to get the win. These Celtics were good. I mean, like, really good. Bird was that piece of the puzzle that served as a wild card too. That player you could put in any role, in any part of the court, in any situation, and who was going to be able to generate advantages on his own. And during the last quarter, the tone did not change. Bird continued to abuse from long distance as he had been doing all game. He continued to play the simplest yet most dominant basketball anyone had ever seen. But one of the virtues of genius is to make what seems complicated really easy, you know? And despite the Bulls' final scare, who managed to cut the deficit from 11 points to 4, the Celtics defense stepped up to close the game. Bird did it. Months after MJ scored 63, the forward only had to play 100% for one half to show him that if he wanted to, he could do it too. 33 points in the first half, 41 in the game. That went down in history as one of the greatest displays of ego any player in the league could perform. The difference is that Larry's ego also made his teammates better. Weeks later, the Celtics met the Bulls again in the first round of the playoffs, and the result was the same as last year.
Like I said with these matchups with Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, both of them were hooping. But the Celtics, you could tell, even with these highlight clips, you could tell they were the better team. Like I said with Jordan and Larry Bird, they always had great matchups, but them Celtics teams in the 80s, they were different.
The difference is that Larry's ego also made his teammates better. Weeks later, the Celtics met the Bulls again in the first round of the playoffs, and the result was the same as last year. Boston managed to advance by a score of 3-0. Yeah, so 6-0 in playoff games against Jordan's Bulls. That's the record that is stuck in history. When they met, Larry's Celtics were always better. So good that not even a superhero performance could stop them. And so Larry Bird, along with the Pistons of Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer, became the thorn in MJ's side that he really could never get rid of. Bird did not win the ring that season. Magic Johnson's Lakers did. The other side of the three-headed monster that dominated basketball worldwide. But even if he didn't win the...
Wait, that shot from Magic was insane. Hold up. Off the glass, too. That was crazy.
Did not win the ring that season. Magic Johnson's Lakers did. The other side of the three-headed monster that dominated basketball.
That shot is crazy.
But even if he didn't win the championship...
No, I'm going back one more time. That shot is nuts.
Side of the three-headed monster that dominated basketball worldwide. But even if he didn't win the championship, Larry did world basketball a favor. He taught Jordan that he still had a long way to reach his full potential. He taught him that scoring isn't always enough, and that he needed to become a leader capable of bringing out the best in his teammates. And without the lesson that the greatest player in Boston Celtics history, with Bill Russell's permission, taught MJ, it is likely that basketball history would have been completely different. And Jordan and Bird's rivalry continued to cause a stir in the league, but they never met again in the playoffs. Larry would go on to post a 17-11 record against Michael's Bulls during his career, until a serious heel injury followed by back problems greatly shortened his career. Injuries that not only brought about the end of the Boston Celtics dynasty, but also sent them into a sinkhole from which they could not climb out of until 20 years later. And we all know that history is written by the winners, and very few people have won more than Jordan. And Larry Bird has kind of gone down in history as underrated compared to
I want to discuss Larry Bird injuries. It's so messed up that his career got shortened by injuries. I absolutely hate injuries. Larry Bird played through a lot of injuries. With back problems, Achilles injuries, he had a lot of problems. Larry Bird got hurt a lot and he played through a lot of it. Larry Bird was a warrior. Back in the day, of course with modern technology, it wasn't as advanced as it was today, especially the medical technology and everything. So he had a lot of perseverance. Larry Bird, he's one of the toughest players ever. That man played through everything. He played through everything.
That not only brought about the end of the Boston Celtics dynasty, but also sent them into a sinkhole from which they could not climb out of until 20 years later. And we all know that history is written by the winners, and very few people have won more than Jordan. And Larry Bird has kind of gone down in history as underrated compared to Jordan. But he was a forward who changed the traditional definition of basketball and who starred in one of the most competitive eras ever. And let's not forget that from 1983 to 1986, there was not a single player on the planet able to face him. No one. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought down in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, shout out to Players Unlimited Basketball for that video. Larry Bird, one of the greatest players in NBA history. He's most definitely a top 10 player in NBA history. Yeah, he pretty much owned Michael Jordan. Well, him and the Celtics owned Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan used to be destroying the Celtics too, but the Bulls wasn't as good as the Celtics. The Celtics in the 80s, they were different. Especially the 86 Celtics, one of the greatest teams ever. But I keep thinking about that with Larry Bird. This man, his rookie year, came in 4th. Then, if I'm correct, he went 3 straight years being 2nd in MVP, then followed that by having 3 straight years of winning MVP. That is nuts. That is crazy. No, Larry Bird is a beast. But watching these highlights, him coming off the screens, him passing, shooting, Larry Bird is most definitely one of the greatest all-around players in NBA history. He had everything. That man can shoot, got a post game, can pass, finish with the left or right hand. Larry Bird has a crazy IQ. He can rebound. Larry Bird, that man had everything. Even though this video highlights Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, it really shows how important having a good team around you is. Because if you see the Boston Celtics team, you can tell they had great chemistry. Every great player need a great supporting cast to win a championship. I know there's a lot of people out there that think that great players can win by themselves. No, you need a great team around you to win championships. You need a great team. I never saw a superstar player win a championship without a great team. I just never saw it. Especially since NBA series now is best out of 7, you need a great team. But shout out to Larry Bird. Also shout out to Michael Jordan, because even though he used to lose to Larry Bird, you could tell he used his losses as motivation. He got better, became a better leader, became a better teammate. Then eventually he won championships. So comment down below your thoughts about this video, your thoughts about Larry Bird, your thoughts about Michael Jordan, what you liked about Larry Bird, what you liked about Michael Jordan, what was your favorite matchup between them two, what you liked about the Boston Celtics in the 80s. You can also explain what you liked about the Chicago Bulls later on, in the 90s. I'm just curious to see what everyone think. Furthermore, like and subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you won't miss another video from me. And I hope everyone have a blessed day. I'm out.